Have you ever sat in a room with a person you love, a person who is physically present, yet felt an unnerving and undeniable sense of their absence? It's a uniquely painful and disorienting experience, a silent alarm that rings in the quiet moments, suggesting that the emotional landscape of your relationship has fundamentally shifted. This feeling, this gut instinct, often plants a seed of the most corrosive fear a person can face in a partnership: the fear of betrayal. The confusion that follows this suspicion can be maddening. You begin to question everything, replaying conversations and scrutinizing actions, searching for proof. But what if the proof isn't found in a single, dramatic discovery, but is instead woven into the subtle fabric of everyday behavior? In this video, we are going to embark on a deep dive into 20 specific behavioral signs that may indicate infidelity, but we will do so through the clarifying lens of behavioral psychology. Before we begin, it is crucial to understand the purpose of this exploration. This is not a checklist for accusation. It is a guide to understanding. Our goal is to arm you with knowledge, not with ammunition. It is to help you decipher the potential meanings behind certain actions, so you can approach your situation not with reactive anger, but with informed clarity and decide what is truly best for your own well-being. As we move forward, it is essential to establish a foundational principle: context is everything. Not a single one of the signs we are about to discuss is, in isolation, definitive proof of infidelity. Human behavior is complex, and actions can be driven by a multitude of factors. Therefore, what you must look for is not a singular, isolated event, but a persistent pattern of multiple, overlapping behaviors that represent a significant and sustained deviation from your partner's established baseline. Life is filled with stressors, demanding projects at work, family crises, personal health challenges, or periods of intense self-doubt. Any of these can trigger temporary changes in mood, communication, and habits that might mimic the signs of infidelity. The true red flag is not the change itself, but the emergence of a new, consistent reality in your relationship. This video should be viewed as a diagnostic tool, not for infidelity alone, but for a potential breakdown in the core pillars of your connection: communication, intimacy, and trust. Infidelity may be one possible symptom of that breakdown, but the health of the relationship itself is the larger issue that these signs ultimately illuminate. Sign number 1. She talks excessively about another person. This is often one of the earliest and most overlooked indicators. A new person, perhaps a coworker or a mutual acquaintance, begins to dominate her conversations. You'll hear their name constantly, learn about their opinions, their accomplishments, and the clever things they said. She might share inside jokes you aren't a part of or quote them as an authority. From a psychological standpoint, this verbal fixation is a way of externalizing an internal infatuation. The brain, in the early stages of a powerful new attraction, a state known as limerence, seeks to reinforce the connection by making the other person a central character in her life's narrative. Of course, it's also possible she has simply found a new platonic friend who shares a niche interest or is genuinely impressed by a new mentor. Sign number 2, she deflects when you mention a specific person. This is the inverse of the first sign, and it is just as telling. While one woman might talk nonstop about a new person, another might do the exact opposite. When you bring up the name of a specific individual, you notice a sudden shift in her demeanor. She may become tense, change the subject abruptly, or offer a curt, dismissive response to shut down the conversation. This avoidance is a classic psychological defense mechanism against cognitive dissonance. The mention of the person's name brings her internal conflict, the gap between her actions and her commitment to you, to the forefront, triggering anxiety. Her immediate deflection is a subconscious effort to escape that psychological discomfort. Alternatively, she may have had a professional disagreement with this person and simply finds them irritating to discuss. Sign number 3. Her schedule becomes vague and she's always busy. The predictable rhythm of her life suddenly becomes opaque. When you ask what she's been up to, answers that were once specific are now frustratingly general. I was just out, I had some errands to run, or it's been a really busy day. This strategic vagueness is a way of creating unaccounted for time. Psychologically, providing a vague answer requires less cognitive energy and carries a lower risk of being disproven than creating a detailed, elaborate lie. It's a low-effort way to build the logistical framework for a parallel life, creating windows of time that are intentionally left undefined. It's worth considering, however, that she may be planning a surprise for you or be genuinely overwhelmed and not have the mental energy for detailed recaps. Sign number 4. She frequently uses working late as an excuse. The occasional late night required by her job morphs into a consistent, recurring pattern. Work becomes the default explanation for her unavailability during evenings or even on weekends. The psychological utility of this excuse is threefold. It's socially laudable, it's difficult for you to verify without appearing untrusting, and it provides a built-in reason for her to be tired, stressed, or emotionally distant when she gets home. It leverages the part of her life that is separate from you, turning her professional identity into a convenient shield for her private activities. That said, it is also very possible that her company is facing a genuine period of high demand or is pushing to meet a critical deadline. Sign number 5. She references a friend in need without providing details. Suddenly, a friend is in constant crisis, requiring her immediate and urgent attention. She may need to rush out of the house, spend hours on the phone, or be gone for an entire evening to offer support. However, when you ask for specifics about the problem, the details are sparse and evasive. This tactic is psychologically potent because it frames her absence as a noble, selfless act. It puts you in a position where questioning her motives or asking for details can make you seem callous and unsupportive. This can be a subtle form of emotional manipulation, using your own empathy against you to create an unchallengeable alibi. On the other hand, her friend might truly be dealing with a deeply sensitive issue and has asked her to maintain absolute confidentiality. Sign number 6. She is suddenly making a whole new group of friends. Out of nowhere, she has a new social circle, and you seem to have no connection to it. She begins spending a significant amount of time with these new people, engaging in activities and sharing experiences that are entirely separate from your life together. From a psychological perspective, this is often an exercise in identity creation. This new group provides her with a social environment where she is not defined by her role as your partner. Within this new ecosystem, she is free to be a different version of herself, one that is perhaps single or unattached, allowing a new romantic connection to blossom without the immediate scrutiny of old friends. Of course, it's also quite possible that she has simply joined a new club or taken up a new hobby and is enjoying a fresh and innocent expansion of her social life. Sign number 7. She doesn't introduce you to these new friends. You hear all about these new people, but any suggestion of you meeting them is met with excuses or deflection. She might say, "Oh, you'd be bored," or "It's just a quick thing," actively managing her schedule to keep her social worlds from intersecting. This is a classic example of psychological compartmentalization. Introducing you to her new friends would force her two separate realities to collide, creating an enormous amount of cognitive stress and dramatically increasing the risk of her secret being exposed. Keeping you separate is a logistical and psychological necessity for maintaining the integrity of her parallel life, preventing the narratives of each world from contaminating the other. Alternatively, she may genuinely feel you have little in common with them and is trying to avoid a potentially awkward social evening for everyone. Sign number 8. She seems emotionally or mentally distant and distracted. You are with her, but you feel profoundly alone. She is physically in the room, but her mind is clearly 1,000 miles away. You find yourself repeating questions, her responses are delayed, and she seems to be in a perpetual mental fog. This is a direct sign of emotional and cognitive resource allocation. A significant affair requires a massive investment of mental energy, planning, communicating, managing the secrecy, and wrestling with guilt. As a result, there is simply less cognitive bandwidth left for you and the daily intimacies of your relationship. Her distraction isn't necessarily a choice, it's a symptom of her focus being powerfully redirected elsewhere. It's important to remember, however, that intense stress from work or worry over a family matter can produce the exact same effect. Sign number 9. She refuses to explain the source of her distraction. When you notice her distance and ask a caring question like, "You seem far away. Is everything okay?" you are met not with relief, but with resistance. She may become defensive, shut down completely with a curt, "I'm fine," or even get irritated, accusing you of being needy or prying. In a healthy relationship, a concerned inquiry is typically seen as an offer of support. To someone hiding something, however, that same question feels like an interrogation. It represents a threat, a step closer to discovery. Her defensive reaction is a psychological firewall designed to immediately halt your line of questioning and push you away from a sensitive area. Conversely, she might be dealing with an issue she finds embarrassing, like a financial problem, and isn't ready to talk about it yet. Sign number 10. She develops a sudden, intense need for privacy. Your shared life, once a place of openness, now has locked doors and private zones. She starts taking phone calls in another room, abruptly angles her laptop screen away when you walk by, or needs significantly more alone time than ever before, often without a clear reason. Psychologically, this is the literal construction of a secret space. An affair requires a private sanctuary to survive, and this new need for privacy is the behavioral manifestation of her carving out that sanctuary within your shared home. It's a territorial act, establishing boundaries not just for personal space, but for secrecy, ensuring she has a secure operational base for her other life. Of course, everyone's need for personal space fluctuates, and she may simply be feeling a bit smothered and in need of quiet time to recharge. Sign number 11. Her phone and digital devices are now heavily guarded. Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, is now her constant companion. It goes with her to the bathroom, is always face down, and is quickly snatched up if you get too close. She may have changed passwords you once knew or suddenly added new layers of security. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, this device is no longer just a communication tool. It is the primary container of her secret. It holds the evidence, the messages, the photos, the call logs. The intense anxiety she feels about you discovering her secret becomes directly transferred onto the object itself. Guarding her phone is a direct manifestation of guarding her infidelity. Every buzz or notification is a potential threat, and her hypervigilance is a symptom of the constant fear of exposure. Alternatively, she could be discussing a sensitive work project or a friend's private medical issue and is simply respecting their confidentiality. Sign number 12. She projects by becoming unusually jealous or suspicious of you. Ironically, the person who is being unfaithful often becomes the accuser. She starts questioning where you've been, scrutinizing your phone, or making baseless accusations of your infidelity. This psychological phenomenon is known as projection. It is a defense mechanism where she unconsciously attributes her own unacceptable feelings and behaviors to you. By accusing you of cheating, she temporarily alleviates her own guilt and anxiety. It reframes the dynamic in her mind, turning her into the vigilant partner and you into the one who is untrustworthy. This can be a deeply confusing and destabilizing tactic, as it puts you on the defensive for something you haven't done. It's also possible, though, that a past betrayal in her own life has left her with unresolved insecurities that are flaring up. Sign number 13. She starts arguments or nitpicks over small things. The peace in your home is constantly being shattered by arguments that seem to come out of nowhere. Small issues that were once ignored, like how you load the dishwasher or a comment you made, now escalate into major conflicts. There are two primary psychological drivers for this behavior. First, it creates emotional distance. Constant fighting pushes you away, making it easier for her to justify her emotional detachment and her connection with someone else. Second, it can be a subconscious strategy to justify her actions. If she can paint you as a difficult, unreasonable, or flawed partner in her own mind, her infidelity can start to feel less like a betrayal and more like an understandable escape from a bad situation. However, heightened stress or hormonal changes can also lead to increased irritability and a shorter fuse. Sign number 14. She unexpectedly pushes for more commitment. In a move that seems counterintuitive, she might suddenly start talking more seriously about the future, marriage, buying a house, or having children at a time when she feels more distant than ever. This is a fascinating psychological behavior known as overcompensation, and it is driven by intense guilt. By pushing for a deeper level of commitment, she is attempting to reassure herself and perhaps you of her dedication to the relationship. It's a subconscious attempt to balance the scales of her own cognitive dissonance. By performing the role of a highly invested partner, she can temporarily silence the inner voice telling her that her actions are destroying the very foundation of that partnership. On the other hand, a scare with a family member's health could have simply made her reevaluate her life's priorities and timelines. Sign number 15. She struggles to say, "I love you," with genuine emotion. The words may still be there, but the feeling behind them has vanished. When she says, "I love you," it sounds mechanical, like a learned response rather than a heartfelt declaration. You might notice she avoids saying it first or responds to your "I love you" with a distracted "you too." From a psychological perspective, for a person engaged in an affair, these words can feel like a lie. Uttering them can trigger a powerful wave of guilt and cognitive dissonance, making the act deeply uncomfortable. The emotional disconnect is a form of self-protection. She is subconsciously guarding herself against the hypocrisy of her own words, and that internal conflict manifests as a flat, unconvincing delivery. It is also possible, however, that she is struggling with a period of depression, which can numb emotions and make genuine expression difficult. Navigating these signs is incredibly difficult, and as you can see, the root issues are often complex and deeply emotional. For many couples, this painful emotional distance begins with a breakdown in physical intimacy. When a man's confidence in his own performance fades, it can trigger a devastating chain reaction of doubt, avoidance, and insecurity that ripples through every aspect of the relationship. Before we continue with the final 5 signs, if this loss of physical intimacy and performance is a core part of your struggle, I need to share the story of a man I learned about who believed his sex life was over. He was facing the exact humiliation and marital strain we've been discussing until he discovered a bizarrely simple, all-natural home remedy, what he called a purple hardening tonic, that completely restored his rock-hard erections and reignited his sex drive by targeting the hidden root causes that dangerous pills only mask. To hear his incredible story and learn about this powerful natural fix, point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen right now. A new page will open for you to watch after this video. For those on a device where that isn't easy, there is also a direct link pinned in the comments below. Sign number 16. Her communication becomes indirect and avoids intimacy. Your conversations, which once flowed easily, now feel like a minefield. She avoids deep or emotionally vulnerable topics, keeping the discussion focused on safe, superficial logistics like bills and schedules. When you try to talk about your relationship or your feelings, she may disengage, claim to be too tired, or give non-committal answers. This is a strategy of emotional evasion. Intimate conversation requires honesty and vulnerability, 2 things that are incredibly threatening to someone harboring a major secret. By keeping the communication shallow, she maintains control and prevents the conversation from veering into dangerous territory where a revealing question might be asked. She is building a conversational wall to protect her secret life. It's also worth considering that she may be feeling insecure about other areas of her life and is avoiding emotional topics in general, not just with you. Sign number 17. She improves her appearance, but it doesn't seem to be for you. She has a renewed and intense focus on her appearance. There are new clothes, a new hairstyle, more time spent at the gym, and a greater attention to detail than you've seen in years. Yet, these efforts don't seem to be linked to your relationship. She doesn't seek your compliments and may even be at her best when she is heading out the door alone. Psychologically, this is often tied to the mating display aspect of a new romance. The validation and excitement from a new person inspire her to present the best possible version of herself. It's an external reflection of the internal thrill of a new attraction, an effort to be seen as desirable and new in the eyes of someone else. Alternatively, she may simply be going through a phase of self-improvement for her own confidence and well-being. Sign number 18. She starts a new diet or fitness routine without involving you. Her newfound dedication to health and fitness is a solitary pursuit. She joins a new gym or starts a new diet, but shows no interest in having you join her or participate in any way. This can be more than just a desire for self-improvement. It can be about creating a separate, personal project that is entirely hers. From a psychological standpoint, this separate routine serves two functions. First, it provides another legitimate reason for her to be away from home and unavailable. Second, it contributes to the creation of a new, independent identity that is not connected to you or your shared life, which is a necessary mental step for someone emotionally investing in another person. Of course, it's also true that many people find fitness to be a deeply personal and meditative journey that they prefer to undertake alone. Sign number 19, her personality undergoes a noticeable shift. She starts developing new hobbies, listening to completely different kinds of music, or adopting new opinions on topics she never cared about before. It can feel like you are living with a slightly different person. This phenomenon is known as identity mirroring. When a person is deeply infatuated, they often subconsciously adopt the interests and traits of the person they are attracted to. It's a way of building rapport and creating a sense of shared identity with the new partner. This personality shift is an outward sign that she is aligning herself with a different sphere of influence, absorbing the characteristics of a new central figure in her emotional life. It's also possible that she's simply in a natural phase of personal growth and is exploring new facets of her own identity. Sign number 20. She consistently avoids making eye contact with you. In moments of conversation, particularly when discussing your relationship or future plans, you notice her gaze drifts away. She looks at the floor, the wall, or her phone anywhere but directly into your eyes. In the language of behavioral psychology, the eyes are a powerful conduit for intimacy and honesty. For someone carrying the weight of a significant deception, direct eye contact can feel overwhelmingly intense and exposing, as if you can see right through them. Avoiding your gaze is a subconscious, instinctual act of self-preservation. It's an attempt to hide the inner conflict and guilt that she fears are plainly visible on her face. However, it's also important to note that for some people, shyness or social anxiety can also make sustained eye contact difficult, especially during serious conversations. As we have explored these 20 signs, a central theme should have become clear. It is the constellation of signs, not a single star, that tells the true story. Seeing one or two of these behaviors might be a reason for a conversation, but seeing a persistent pattern of 5, 10, or even more is a significant indicator that the very foundation of your relationship has been compromised. At their core, these behaviors point to a profound emotional and psychological shift away from you and the shared life you have built. This knowledge should not be the end point for an accusation, but rather the starting point for a deep and honest self-reflection. What these signs collectively reveal is a critical breakdown in communication, trust, and intimacy, issues that must be addressed, regardless of whether infidelity is ultimately confirmed. The path forward from a place of suspicion is not a direct line to confrontation. Yelling and demanding answers will likely only lead to more denial and defensiveness. The most powerful next step is to use this knowledge to initiate a calm, honest conversation, not about a third person, but about the emotional distance that has grown between the two of you. Focus on what you can control, your own response, your own dignity, and the ultimate decision about what you need for a healthy and fulfilling future. We wish you clarity, strength, and the wisdom to navigate this difficult path.